Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Aun Syed Show. And today I have a very special guest with me. So I have with me Mr. Colin Fritz, who is a lead machine learning engineer and a management consultant at Cap Gemini. So he's joining us right now, straight out of Chicago. Colin, thank you so much for being here. How are you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about some machine learning and AI and consulting and entrepreneurship and whatever else you have for me.
For sure, for sure. No, we've got some really good things to ask you, and I hope the audience will benefit from it as well. So before I begin, if you could just shed some 2, 3 minutes on your background, what do you do, how you got into this field, just a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So started out as an engineer. I was an electrical engineer long time ago. Just loved physics, loved information science, building things, tinkering, very, very typical engineering beginnings, I think, in that way. And then I worked as an electrical engineer for an aerospace company for a while, designing electrical systems. And
Nice.
while I was there, I kind of realized that these new things called, not, they weren't new at the time, but they were becoming popular. These new things called neural networks
Yeah.
might one day be able to design circuits better than I could. As
Wow.
I was sitting there designing circuits, I kind of realized like I'm just doing the same thing with a few tweaks of the rules over and over again, and a neural network might be able to do this if it had a lot of examples
Yeah.
of how to do it. And so then I started thinking like maybe I should switch. Maybe it's more kind of fascinating for me to go to graduate school and learn about machine learning and become a software engineer. So I did that. I kind of completely switched and in graduate school, I did a lot of studying of applied stats, machine learning, started writing code all day, and got fascinated with that. And then after graduate school, I got a little bit of funding, and with a co-founder, I started a trading firm where we had a lot of fun building machine learning algorithms to stock equities with, trade equities with, some option trading as well. Um,
Nice.
that was a lot of fun. And then COVID happened, you know, everyone's life was disrupted by that for a while.
Yeah.
And after that, I decided to try consulting at Cap Gemini, and I got picked up there. And ever since then, I've really enjoyed working with enterprise clients and just getting exposure to how the corporate world is thinking about adapting to this massive change that is happening in the world with
Yeah.
AI and everything related to it.
Nice.
So
Nice.
that's where I'm
No.
at now.
Well, that's such a wonderful background, and you're just getting started. So, must be pretty excited about that. So, Colin, I'll just start off with a very basic question for the audience because a lot of people watching this, they don't know anything about machine learning. And so, if you could just tell us in very common man words or in a very common summary, what is machine learning and how does it differ from traditional programming? Because a lot of people get confused.
Hmm. Let me think of a way to make this a simple
Yeah.
explanation.
Please do. Yes.
Well, regular programming is sort of the art of just writing instructions for a computer to follow. You're
Okay.
sort of in a way a human can understand. You're writing instructions for a computer to, uh, in yeah, just at a very basic level, do what you
Yeah.
want it to do, right?
Okay.
But machine learning is software. Like when you write intelligent software, which is what machine learning has become,
Yeah.
you are doing the same thing, except for this, you now have this element of memory that the computer, this is a terrible, I'm like butchering this explanation because I'm trying to be precise
Yeah,
about it. It's difficult. Um,
it is.
essentially, like with normal programming, you're giving instructions, but what a machine learning algorithm does is you give it examples of the right thing to do. And
Yeah.
over many, many different examples, it eventually learns, quote unquote, in the
Yeah.
simplest terms possible, um, how to, how to do what you've given it examples to do.
Okay.
Um, yeah, without getting into specifics about how the computer actually does that, but the two concepts are different, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Nice. And is there any difference between artificial intelligence and machine learning, or are both of them sort of a subset of the same concept? 'Cause this is also where a lot of people get confused. So if you could just shed some light on that as well.
I would say machine learning is a subset of AI.
Okay, so machine
Um,
learning is a subset of AI. Okay.
yeah, yeah, AI is more this pursuit of general intelligence or artificial super intelligence too. And machine learning has been around for a long time. It's like more applied statistics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Nice. So my next question to you is that, so right now it's September 2024. And let's say I want to become a machine learning engineer and also want to, land a job at Cap Gemini, or, just do some really cool stuff with this new technology that got you very much fascinated a couple of years ago. And a lot of people right now are climbing on the bandwagon, and they also want to, explore this new space. So as of 2024 September, what is the path you would tell anybody to follow to become a machine learning engineer?
Uh, well, I think there's two ways to think about it.
Okay.
There's like an engineer that understands the fundamentals of computing really, really well
Okay.
and can then build on top of that deep knowledge of the fundamentals to be sort of an architect, someone who can understand how to build really robust and software and the internals really well. And then there's this other type of engineer that sort of understands how to build things with the high level tools. They might
Okay.
be able to write some HTML and CSS and spin up a web page, or they might be able to, take a cloud course and put together some basic high level things, but they don't understand how the underlying
Yeah.
fundamental networking concepts work, for example, right? So
Yeah.
they can't be trusted to build anything too complex, but they can still build applications, right? So in the long term, being type one is much better than being type two, because
Okay.
type one is more adaptable, more valuable in the long term. Those are the guys and girls who are building probably, on some of the more hardcore engineering teams that are out there, making the kind of money that makes headlines and pushing the ball down the field a lot faster. And but the type twos are still very valuable because everyone needs application developers and we all like our social media platforms, and websites and whatever else. So if you're going to be type one, it's going to take longer. And my recommendation is to start with this website called, I believe it's called Teach Yourself CS, I believe is the domain name. But if you just
Okay.
type in that into Google, you'll be able to find it. And they have a fantastic listing of a couple different books that will teach you computer architecture in a very digestible, straightforward way. Operating systems in the same way. They have great references for that. Same thing for database systems, etc. And this is what I actually did when I made my transition. I read all of those books. I actually read an entire textbook on database systems, and I actually went through the entire textbook on computer architecture. Same thing with IP networking, and it's all been very helpful and relevant to what I do now because like in my day-to-day job now, I use IP networking all the time. So to understand the
Yeah.
fundamentals gives me an advantage, right? So that's where I would start for type one.
Okay.
Um, and then as you're doing that though, build a portfolio, build something, just build a website that hosts a very simple machine learning model in the background, something like that, and that can be done just through Googling. You take a course on web
Yeah.
development that takes 20 hours, right? And
Right.
then if you want to then host the model, take a take Andrew NG's original machine learning course. It's a fantastic course. It's easy. If you understand basic mathematics, you can get through it and learn enough valuable stuff to deploy a useful model in your website. It doesn't take that much time. Maybe 100, 200 hours to get that done. And then
Okay.
you'll be able to unlock a path to a job doing that.
Right.
But that will take longer because those fundamentals are
Yeah.
tough. So for the other type of engineer person looking to get a job faster, your boot camp grad types, or um, maybe you're a college graduate that didn't pay a whole lot of attention to the fundamentals and just like, needs a job as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Um, I would I would go and find maybe an example repository of something like I was talking about, like a website project that hosts a machine
Yeah.
learning model in there with some popular libraries. And I would just adapt that. I would just spend all day, as much time as you can, little by little, building something that is similar to that example repo until you understand, at least at a high level, each piece of that. And then prepare for interviews specifically. So find out from people at companies, what are they going to ask in the interview? You can just, DMs are open for everybody. It's not like
Yeah.
engineering managers at companies are getting flooded with DMs all the time, right? I mean, you send out 100 DMs, you'll find someone that'll tell you, this is like a good list of questions to study. This is what people like me typically care about,
Yeah.
and study specifically for that while you build your project, and just, get through the interview, and you'll be good. It'll take probably 6 months to a year if you're starting from scratch, but
Nice.
it's doable.
Great. So you spoke about these tools that you mentioned, for the type 2 engineer, because I'll focus more on that because that's something
Yeah.
that most people would want to become. Just understanding a bit of fundamentals, and just, get on with the job or get on with whatever they want to do. So for the type
Mhm.
2 engineer, what are some of the top tools that are being used in the market today? And there's a demand for AI engineers that are, efficient in those tools. They're quite experienced.
I would say you have to understand at least the basics of machine learning. So
Okay.
you gotta go out and take, like I said, Andrew Ng's course is really good. That's still a
Okay.
classic.
All right.
Um, and then build something with neural networks so you can at least understand the flow of how to train it, how to evaluate its results. You
Okay.
know, just something simple. Like it could be a cat dog classifier, but
Okay.
just understand at least how it
What-
works
What's
to
going
start with.
on? All right.
And then software engineering wise, I'm seeing infrastructure become more and more important.
Okay.
Um, so after you build this original tutorial, it would be great to take a course on cloud computing on one of the cloud providers and go and deploy your solution in your own sort of like mock CI/CD pipeline that you can talk about in interviews and um, and use to continue to push code to. Because really the actual writing of the code itself, like with Python, is not the complicated part. It's how do you make useful software with that? How do you deploy it in a team context?
Yeah.
Um, what kind of cloud services do you typically use to host your model? What are the pros and cons of that? So
Okay.
yeah, I would take a cloud computing course, like something about infrastructure along with a project-based course in Python for learning how to deploy your machine learning models. That's what I would focus on.
Yeah. So we spoke a lot about, becoming a machine learning engineer, but I just want to shed some time on, probably let's say a type 3 person who doesn't know what's happening in the background, but he understands a lot of use cases that can actually be benefited by the use of ML. So do you feel that there is and because I see people all around that, they're creating such great AI products and they don't even know the basics of what's happening in the background. They're just using some sort of automations, or they're just outsourcing the ML work, but they're very much focused on how AI can actually bring benefit and actually create a business out of that benefit, solve like real world problems. So do you feel that you could become a type C person with having just a little basic about AI, but how important it is to actually find that problem that machine learning can help solve? Because that's also very important, right?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I've seen a lot of people try to use ChatGPT for different
Yeah.
automations, and I'm not a big believer in that yet because I think
Okay.
even though it makes for a good demo or, you know, maybe generates ideas for
Yeah.
copywriters and things like that, I just haven't seen uh, people do anything really robust
Yeah.
without actually packaging it into a software product.
Okay.
Um, uh, and I think a lot of that has to do with human psychology too. Uh,
Yes.
like if something is difficult to do,
Yeah.
it typically means that it's going to be more unique and valuable to the marketplace.
Hmm.
But if anybody can just, spin up a widget using ChatGPT and then go and try and sell it, it's unlikely that thing's going to be very valuable. Um, and certainly I haven't really seen anything yet. I'm kind of always looking for these tools to use,
Yeah.
and nothing's come across my desk that I use on a regular basis other than ChatGPT, which is a foundational model, but nothing on
Yeah.
top of that.
So, do you feel AI is a little overhyped right now? Like, are we over exaggerating the sort of impact it has actually created? I mean, ChatGPT is a great tool. It's sort of a part of our everyday lives. But apart from that, do you see, uh, a lot of tools making a great impact, or the ability for, so rephrasing my question, people feel that AI is going to create a huge difference. It
Hmm.
will maybe 5, 10 years down the line, but do you think right now is the right time, or are we in very early infant stages?
Um, well, if if the trend continues, it's gonna get very, very wild very soon.
Okay.
Because you can just look at, I think I had a LinkedIn post about this a long time ago, but you can just look at the graph of the performance of these models as you scale them.
Okay.
And so far, the more scale you have, the better their performance has been.
Nice.
So if this trend holds,
What's a positive
it,
sign for all of
yeah,
us?
it's going to get better and better. And the other step changes that there's going to be that I'm seeing happening is the move from this sort of disembodied AI that you can communicate with through a chat window to AI that understands the physical world,
Nice.
um, which will be a massive step change because, yeah, I mean, if you can merge those two worlds together and allow the algorithm to understand what the meaning of a word is or instructions are in relation to the physical world, there's going to be a world where something like an Optimus robot
Yeah.
will be able to get piloted by a middle manager. 10 Optimus robots will get piloted by a middle manager,
Yeah.
and then at that point, the output of what companies will be able to do is going to be like nothing we've ever seen, and it's slowly happening. I mean, you could
Yeah,
see
it
it.
is. Definitely.
Um,
The world is transitioning towards that.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah, but
yeah,
reaching that Optimus sort of level as of right now, like I see a lot of companies, a lot of people struggle with hallucination, which is a problem that most of us face. So, are there any tips that you guys use at your company or you've seen around you that can help improve? Because as you mentioned, as the models scale, the efficiency of these models are increasing. So is it a problem that small companies do not have enough data that can tackle hallucination, or is there any other problem that you might see that's happening with smaller businesses all around us, or small companies that are providing these services?
yeah. Hallucination is a problem. Nobody
Yeah.
really has good solution right now,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So you just have to be careful that your application isn't really, really sensitive to
Is
that.
data the problem with, for hallucination, like the lack of data, or it could be like other factors as well?
Um, I'm not in a AI research lab, so I
Okay.
don't know so I might be just kind of speculating, but yeah, if it doesn't have access to the data that's relevant to the question, it's gonna hallucinate.
Hallucinate.
Um, but even if it does have data, I've just in my personal experience with using ChatGPT, I mean, it'll give
Nice.
if you're even if your prompt is a little bit misleading or incomplete, it
Yeah.
will give you a response that seems good, but upon further investigation has a few errors in it.
Yeah.
So it is a problem. And no, unfortunately, I don't have you know,
Yeah.
I
Nobody
think
does.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think it'd be a lot more famous if I had a solution to that.
Yeah. Maybe
So
you might reach that one day. Who knows?
yeah, we'll see.
Um, yes. And yeah, and I also feel like, prompt engineering is a skill set that I see people now mentioning in their CVs as well. Like, I
Hmm.
am a great user of ChatGPT. I mean, that's a skill, that one can have. So definitely for sure. And and exactly, I think as we evolve, we utilize these tools more and more. So the market is going to mature. Our knowledge is going to enhance. I know, as you mentioned that we are in for a good trajectory in terms of AI development, and let's see where it goes. So coming back to our discussion, we went a little off topic, but I think that was really important as well to address these issues. So we start off with the basic courses. There are two routes that we can take, which is a very technical machine learning approach, and the second is that the ability to utilize tools. So apart from the courses that you've mentioned, are there any other books, online courses, online certifications that you've seen people do that have added value to them? And is there any way that I do these courses and I'm not getting a job, right? How can I gain some practical experience to help me sort of, land that first interview or land me that first entry level position, especially for people, let's say, transitioning from mathematicians to AI or statisticians to AI. And a lot of people I see are want to come into the corporate sector from the research space as well. So if you could shed some light on this approach.
Yeah. Um, you know, my perspective on this is not that there's some special course that you're going to take
Okay.
that's going to give you a competitive advantage. You know, access to information has become completely commoditized. I mean, it's almost entirely free at this point to give yourself a very quality education in any subject. Um,
Absolutely.
if you want to learn the mathematics of it, there's books like I think I have the book behind me actually. I think it's called All of Statistics is a great summary of applied statistics. There's the Mathematics of Machine Learning book, is a great summary of the mathematics of machine learning. Um,
Mhm.
and all these resources are a Google step away.
Yeah.
Um, so I think the more important thing is to not to get philosophical, but I think any competitive marketplace, which the job marketplace is competitive, follows a similar pattern. The
Okay.
people who are committed and patient with the search find a mentor, which is a big thing, and also is easily accessible. There's a lot of great people that I've talked to throughout the years that have given me, 2 hours a month just to make sure I'm on the right track, make sure I'm looking at the right materials, make sure I don't get discouraged with chasing my goals. Um, it's so if you have the mentor, you're patient, you're putting together a project, like I said, that's a website and has a machine learning model behind it. You've read these books, eventually you're going to find yourself in the top half of the marketplace, being able to get a job. Um, if you don't do that and you remain sort of, the buzzwords, but you don't study a lot, it's like sometimes you forget to study for a week or you just get discouraged, and then yeah, you're gonna have a hard time. I mean, I've
Right.
had people come to interviews that I've given where they didn't know some of the fundamentals. I mean, they struggled to name algorithms that were used for regression versus classification.
Oh, okay.
So there's people that show up to interviews that don't know the very basics. So
Okay.
there's opportunity there if you just be patient and do the work.
So yeah, so you
Yeah.
gotta spend the time, build a strong foundation, the cornerstone needs to be set right. And as they say, you can't use buzzwords and get yourself out of it, because even if you get the job, you will struggle at that job, because if you don't understand what's happening in the background, I think even if you do type A, type B, it's going to be difficult. So I completely agree, fundamentals are really important and resources are free out there. There are a lot of boot camps that people can do, and you have to be patient. It's a so just to sort of motivate the audience, transitioning from electrical engineering to computer science, and you did your master's as well. Would you
Mhm.
recommend that? Like, if somebody wants to switch their fields, is master's important in this day and age, or you think self-learning, these courses, certifications would suffice for us to switch the fields?
Um, the master's is going to be your quickest path going back
Okay.
to school, just
Okay.
because by virtue of the fact you can invest all of your time
Yeah.
into studying, and you have your professor as a mentor and more access to job search services. So that's going to be your quickest path, but it comes with a cost, of course. So
Yeah.
if you don't want to spend the money, then you're just going to have to grit your teeth and spend a little bit more time on the weekends and at night and just grind it through. It's possible. That's how I did it, because even though I did a lot of machine learning related things in my master's, COVID happened, and so I had
Yeah.
to sort of learn the whole programming part by
From home.
myself, even though I
Yeah.
knew the mathematics. And so I just, spent as much time as I could coding, and eventually got the position. So
Nice.
yeah. And if you're going to do that, I would also say, just stay humble too. Apply for positions that may not be the pay that you want right out of the gate, but are going to get you the title of machine learning engineer and get you close to that kind of work.
Yeah.
And that'll be much better than if you try to self-study your way into, like a job at OpenAI or something. I mean, which I've actually seen people convince themselves that they can do. They like self-study for a year and they think they're going to get a tier 1 job. And,
Yeah.
so it doesn't work like that. It's like anything else. Be
Baby
humble,
steps.
learn, yeah, baby steps, crawl, walk, run, and you'll get there.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So my last question to you is, it's sort of a combined questions, like, what is the role of AI ML engineers you see in the next 5, 10 years? Do you see the demand growing for these positions? Or do you think that AI is going to get so smart that, we won't be needing AI engineers, which is also one of the, conspiracy theories that we see, that, AI is going to take over. But my personal opinion on this is that, even if the AI market grows, there will still be positions on machine learning ops. You have to deploy, as you mentioned, that's a very huge industry. Not a lot of people are focused on it right now, but I think the demand for that is going to increase. So what do you think? Like, where is the market going to go in the next 5 to 10 years?
I think I'm stealing this from I think it was Mark Andreessen. I could be wrong.
Okay.
Um, but somebody pointed out in another podcast that the demand for code is pretty much infinite.
Okay.
Because if you really think about it, if we could, we'd automate just about anything. You know,
Yeah.
if you could wire your house to intelligently turn on the air conditioning, open the garage, do your laundry, clean the house, like have a more intelligent Roomba, you can maybe even one day. be a nanny to your kids. Like if you really get crazy with it, the demand for code's infinite, you
Yeah.
know? Um, so that then begs the question, if you need people to determine what code is useful to write,
Yeah.
then there's always going to be some demand for a software engineering market because even if they can write code much faster with tools like ChatGPT, it doesn't matter because all that means is we're going to write all this code that we have latent demand for much faster, you know? Um, and I think that will probably last until we get to a point where there's true artificial superintelligence that can just be so connected to all of the Internet of Things sensors, our desktops, maybe even our own physiology, that it takes over writing all of the code. Um, but until that entity is that connected, I think there's going to be a lot of room for software engineers actually. I don't
Okay.
think the demand is gonna drop because people are just going to keep coming up with new
Building
things
stuff.
they want to write code for.
Or yeah,
Yeah.
that's and I completely resonate and agree with you because the as the AI systems or the AI trend grows, the demand for people actually building those systems is also going to grow. So it's like a two-way relationship, and it's a good sign for people want to enter into this industry. So any last piece of advice you would like to give people out there who want to transition into this? And are you happy with your switch right now from electrical engineering to a machine learning engineer?
Uh, yeah, two questions there.
Yeah.
I don't my I'll answer the am I happy question first.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, I'm very happy. It
Amazing.
feels good to have made the transition successfully and be given the opportunity to build this new wave of applications that I think is on the whole going to make life more interesting for all of us. So I'm very happy about that.
Nice.
It's a growing dynamic career with a lot of entrepreneurial activity that's going on, which I have a history of being a part of, and I enjoy that. Um,
Great.
and my advice, I think rather than say anything tactical, I'm just going to say, you know, just just think hard about what you want, and then
Okay.
reverse engineer back from there the steps to get there. Um, and don't stop until the house is built. I think that's a lot of people's downfall is you can't stop halfway. A house is worth nothing if a piece of its roof is missing. You have to go all the way until you get that thing you decided you want. You can't stop.
Amazing.
So just stay patient, keep going, and build the full house.
Wow. That is some really nice words of wisdom. And, I completely resonate with that. And that is absolutely true. And I think that's at the heart of success, that is the core, that is the cornerstone. Just keep going. And it's very important to reverse engineer and understand what you want out of life. And, maybe it's a buzzword right now. So people want to get into machine learning, but let's say maybe it's not cut out for you, and that's perfectly fine. But you need to know your end goal, as you've mentioned, and just reverse engineer from there. So thank you so much, Colin. It was such a wonderful conversation. I learned a lot actually personally, and I really thank you for your time today. And I'm sure people are going to be taking a lot of notes from this conversation and apply it to their new careers that they want to build out of this wonderful space that we're in. Thank you.
Thanks. I enjoyed it.